Coltrane, a teenager living in northern New Mexico. I love dogs, working with my hands, building things, and I love to eat. I'm a budding chef and I want to share my passion for cooking and trying new foods with you. Welcome to Colt de Cuisine. Today we're at Horno, David Seller's new restaurant in Santa Fe. We're going to learn to make a dish with him. It's going to be very fun. Let's go. So how are you today, David?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Tired.
Good.
It's the weekend finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I have a couple different questions for you today.
Sure.
My first one is, I know you went to Plymouth University for philosophy. Who's your favorite philosopher and why?
I don't know if I have a different one. I mean a favorite one. That's kind of the thing about philosophy, at least in my opinion, is that you learn a lot about different stuff, right? And we studied a bunch of different things. I mean, like the classics, like the German, the French, all that. But I definitely gravitated towards the Eastern philosophy. So I don't know if there's one particular one, but like I studied a lot about, Buddhism, Taoism, and also Hinduism when I was in college. And that's kind of what I concentrated on. And I guess what resonated with me the most was the balance that especially Taoism had, like the balance in life with nature and just how you live your life, etc.
Very cool.
Yep.
Why did you choose to get a degree in philosophy?
It was funny. I think like a lot of kids, I went to school not really knowing what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine just sort of turned me on to it, and I took a philosophy class, and I just sort of fell in love with it. I fell in love with it and just really enjoyed, like sort of the mental exercise of, thinking about how life and what it is, etc. And then what happened was, my intention was to go back to school and eventually become, like a professor of philosophy or something and teach within the district. And then that kind of got derailed by my cooking passion.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite thing about cooking?
That's a tough question. I don't know. Again, I don't know if there's a favorite thing. There's a lot of things that resonate with me about that. I mean, one is it's just like it's the act of cooking something is like it's like one of the most basic parts of life, right? Is to like process a raw ingredient, and especially if you do it with some level of love, you know what I mean, to nourish people, whether it's your family or people around you. That's a huge thing, and it just feels right to me to do that. And it's kind of an instant gratification too thing. It's like it just feels good to make people happy, to have them eat quality food that's made with a lot of care.
Yeah. What was your first restaurant job?
My very first restaurant job was when I was in high school. I got a job working for a friend of mine, which was actually kind of had a big influence on me. Actually, it was I went to high school in New Jersey, and I had some friends who were immigrants from Sicily. The kids were in my grade, and first generation immigrants. They were born in Sicily and they came over, and they had a pizza place. So they had a Sicilian pizza place. And they did like other Italian food, but it was mainly a pizza place. And it was great. It was called Sal's Pizzeria. And I worked there for a couple of years in high school, both cooking and like delivering pizzas and stuff. But the cool thing was that they were so super traditional as far as how they did stuff. I mean, the dad didn't even speak English, and he was the one who ran the pizza place. So it was really cool, at a young age to really learn about like authentic food from another place. Because that's how they were raised.
Yeah.
The kids, they'd take the kids back to Sicily every summer, and they'd all like hang out there. And then when they'd come back, I'm still friends with them. They'd tell me about like all the stories about how like the grandmas would like make they'd like sun dry tomatoes out in the planks, like in the field, and like stuff like that. It was great.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So are you originally from New Jersey?
I was kind of all over the East Coast. I was actually born in the D.C. area, and then I lived in New Jersey and the Boston area and New Hampshire for a long time. So those three are kind of the spots.
So I know you have kids. I go to school with your youngest son.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do you share
Yep.
cooking with them?
I do. I do. The one that you go to school with, Brody, who's 15, he is not as interested in cooking as my older one. But my older one is very interested in cooking, and he actually works here at the restaurant with me. Especially before we started and right when we started, he worked in the kitchen quite a bit, cooking.
Really?
So he cooked a bunch. And then also pre-restaurant, like during that, there was like a good year plus of the pandemic before we started the restaurant. I wasn't working as much, so we cooked at home a bunch together. And Mateo, who's my older one, he's 17 now, he really learned a lot about cooking. I mean, he got to the point where he was just like, during the day I wouldn't be there, and he'd just like make homemade pasta for himself and like roll it out and like cook it, which is pretty cool. And now he still works at the restaurant, mainly more he works as a food runner, but he's still involved here a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are some of your idols, chef idols?
Let's see. I mean, I'd say probably my biggest influence overall is a couple people who are from California, Berkeley, is Chez Panisse. So Chez Panisse is a famous American French restaurant that started in the early 70s, and Alice Waters was the chef, and there was another chef named Jeremiah Tower who worked for her as well, who both of them together kind of made Chez Panisse what it was, and they're the ones who sort of coined the term California cuisine, like cooking really regionally and organic. And when I first started to get really into cooking, I gravitated towards that because it was like very localized food, very high quality, and it was I just loved their cooking style. I mean, their cookbooks are the most worn that I have. I mean, they're all falling apart. Like I cooked from front to back of several of them.
Very nice.
Yep.
So you own Horno. I know you had another restaurant in Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you plan on opening any other restaurants?
Not right now. I mean, our dream was, my family's dream, my wife and I and our kids, was to start this business, and have it be a business that would sustain us, you know what I mean, as a family, which right now it is, which is great, which we're lucky that, we were able to do that, and we've had enough success where the restaurant's doing really well and it's a good enough size. And so right now, I mean, we're so new. We're only 9 months in right now. So our focus right now is really just on honing in and making this better and better. And maybe in the future, if we get to the point where we want to do something else, we would, but not for a couple of years probably.
Okay. So how did you exactly come up with the name for this restaurant?
Horno is, a couple years ago, we were looking to do another restaurant again for probably the last 3 or 4 years, right? And I was working on this concept, which I really liked, which was mainly Italian, but more small plates like tapas, but based in Italian food. And I was really intrigued by the Horno, which is, in Italian, it's called a forno, right? But it's the same thing. So it's like the wood burning oven that you do pizzas in, right? Mm-hmm. But in Italy, they do a lot of other stuff in there as well. Like you can roast all kinds of meats, you can do all kinds of stuff. So just kind of as an exercise, I mean, we were hoping to get a place where, we could have a big wood burning oven and do all those kind of cuisines and have kind of like, the oven be this kind of the center of the concept, right? So we were looking for places. We almost had one that happened, and then it didn't, and that place probably could have housed a big oven like that. Then this one came through, and unfortunately, that's impossible to do here just because of the size kitchen and what it is. But we were kind of thinking of different names and different sort of things like concepts, and so we adjusted the concept slightly. But then we just kept on circling back to Horno, and it's because Horno is it's become kind of like a metaphor where the Horno, which is the oven, is like the heart of the kitchen, right? So it changed from actually, having, this concept that was based completely cooking out of this wood fire oven to having it be more of like, a concept, like a metaphor, right? So that's what the Horno is. So the Horno is like, you know, it's like the heart of cooking. And I mean, obviously, we still cook stuff in ovens all the time. That's what it means. Um, but we also thought, you know, it kind of all tied together. So it's the metaphor piece, and then the Horno, you know, Spanish, that's the Spanish word for Horno. And then also the Native Americans use Hornos here as well. That's what they call the Horno. The, you know, the outside wood ovens where they cook the bread, you see them all over the place. So it just seemed like kind of a nice thing, because it kind of, to me, it kind of speaks of family and like gathering around and cooking, and that's how we like to cook.
Very cool. I like that a lot.
Yep, go.
So before we start cooking, what would you say your favorite dish here on the menu is?
I would definitely say that I do not have a favorite dish.
You don't have
it just that's just how it works. I mean, we certainly have things that have become favorites of the guests who come in, but I mean, I like cooking everything. So I don't have one, because I am a restless cook for sure. Like, I don't like, you know, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to open the restaurant and leave the menu the same forever. That's just like not me. So there's a few things that have become kind of signature dishes. But again, you know, to me, the exciting part is always cooking something new and something different. So it'll, like, my favorite dish at any one moment, it'll change from time to time, just because it's like what excites me.
Yeah.
You know, I try to make every dish as good as, you know, mind-blowing as it can be, right? But it's just kind of the moment.
Very cool. All right, should we cook something?
Sure.
Let's go. So what are we making today?
We are going to make a traditional Italian dish, which is one of our signature dishes on the menu. It's called a pasta carbonara.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So
I've eaten
carbonara.
that here.
Oh, you've
So,
had that here?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool. Awesome. So I'll show you the trick to it. It's actually like a lot of pastas in Italy, like traditional Italian pastas. It seems really simple, but it's all on the technique. So that's why I thought it'd be fun to show you, because most people don't make it right.
Okay.
And it's a little trick to get it just right, where the sauce, because most people in the United States, most people do a carbonara. It's like, I call it an Americanized carbonara, where what they do is they use like bacon, and they put peas in it, and then they put cream in it, and it's like this kind of like creamy Alfredo sauce with bacon, right?
Okay.
But in Italy, that's not what it is. In Italy, it's a Roman dish, right? So what it usually features is the pasta itself. A lot of times it's dried pasta. Here we're going to do a pasta which is called macaroni alla chitarra, which is a traditional fresh pasta in Italy. It's where you roll it out on this chitarra cutter, which is like guitar strings. I could show you it. But it's a fresh made pasta, and it always features either pancetta or guanciale, which pancetta is like a Italian cured bacon, like a pork belly based bacon, or guanciale, which is it's a cured pork jowl. What we use, we change it up and make it, the only thing we do to make it slightly less traditional is we use a combination of pancetta, which is right here, and we put braised pork belly in it.
Okay.
So it's a braised, fresh pork belly, and then pancetta as well. And then it always has garlic in it, red pepper flake, egg yolk, and olive oil, and pecorino cheese. And the trick is that you make a sauce with the egg yolk and the pasta water, which is kind of difficult to get just right. Whereas the Americanized version, most of the time, they use the cream instead.
Instead of the
because
pasta water?
or instead of the egg yolk.
Okay.
So that's what makes it more like an Alfredo.
Okay.
Whereas that's kind of like the cheating way. You see what I'm saying? It makes it
We're
more
gonna make
rich.
it the
Because
real way.
Americans like that big creamy, like too much cream. Like the Italians don't use a lot of cream in pasta.
Okay.
That's all like American Italian restaurants. So I was thinking what I could do is I could, if you want, I can show you how to make it.
Okay.
I'll make one, and then you make one.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That sounds
Because
good.
then that's the trick. So then you kind of see how it works.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or I can show you how to make it too, straight off. It's up to you.
I want to try it too. Yeah.
Okay. How about this? We'll do it at the same time.
Okay.
So we'll do two of them. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is get your pan hot.
Okay.
Then we have olive oil here. So like I said, so these are the ingredients right here. Olive oil, pancetta, pork belly, slivered garlic, a little bit of red pepper flake, black pepper, salt.
Okay.
And then this is pecorino cheese, right?
Yeah.
And then also the egg yolk. So what we do is, because we sell a bunch of them, we'll take out some of the egg yolks, but they kind of, I'll show you, when you go to pour it, you can kind of see. It's usually about one egg, it's like one egg yolk per order.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll get a couple bowls here. me get one more pair of tongs real quick. So we got one
Pretty
second.
fun.
Okay, so here's your tongs. Okay, so you do what I do. So this is how it works. So a little bit of olive oil. You can see the pan's nice and hot. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab some of this pork belly because we want to crisp the pork belly up first. We'll do about that much in there. See how it's nice and hot? Now I'm going to turn it down just a tiny bit. So what we'll do is we'll just like let this, you're on that one. Just let it sit, because the thing with pork belly is there's a lot of fat in it. So if you move it too much, it'll just move around without crisping up.
Okay.
And all the fat will just melt, and then you'll have nothing left.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So we're just going to let it sit there. Here's where we keep our pasta portions. So I'm going to get a couple of nice pasta portions out of here.
Cool.
So you see these are kind of cool, right? So we got them all set. So they're nice and ready to go. They're weighed out, so they're always the same amount. Okay, so now these are starting to get crispy, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take, you do the same as I do, take a little bit of pancetta, about that much, a little bit of garlic, about that much, and then we'll grab a little bit of red pepper flake, about that much. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the pasta in. You grab that one, put it in that one. And then usually what I'll do is give it a little stir. See, I had a little bit of water on it. Stir it up. Give it a little shake. We're going to turn it down a quick second, because we want to make sure the pasta's cooked before we...
Is that pasta water?
This is white wine, actually.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of times, I forgot to mention that, we're going to hit that with a little bit of white wine.
Nice little flambe.
Yep. We're just going to let that cook. And then what I always have right here is I have a little
Ladles.
little guy here. So what we can do is we'll take a little bit of pasta water and throw that in there.
That smells real good.
Not too much. All good? Yeah. Perfect. So we're going to let this go down a tiny bit. I'm going to turn it down. Because the key is you want the pasta, you can always add more pasta water, right?
Yeah.
But what you want to do is you want to have it reduced just to the right spot where when you add the pasta in, when the pasta is cooked, we're going to add the pasta in, and you want enough liquid, you want to have just enough liquid. You put the pasta in, and then what you do is you put the egg yolk on the top of the pasta, right?
Okay.
And then what you do is when the pasta's in there, you have the raw egg yolk on top of the pasta, and you want to stir it over the high heat real quick. And then what happens is the egg yolk will emulsify with this liquid in there and create a creamy, eggy sauce.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you don't do it just right, if you don't have enough liquid, it'll be pasty because the egg will just adhere to the noodles. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or it could even scramble the egg.
And cook it.
So you have to be careful. So that's why you put the pasta in first and then put the egg on the top, and then you want to stir it, because you don't want the egg hitting all around the top here, and it'll get, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It'll get pasty if you do that. So you want it just, and then as well, what also happens is the starch from the pasta, whenever you do a fresh pasta, when you stir it in the pan, it'll create, like the starch will thicken the sauce as well.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the trick is, just gonna wait our noodles. And this we have a little bit of leeway here, right? So like, if our noodles aren't quite done yet, we can just add a tiny bit more pasta water. And then you can also, even when you're making it, like if you kind of mess up, because a lot of times when you're cooking on the line, you're super busy, right? So like
Yeah.
you may have, the timing might be a little messed up. You might be, this might get a little dry. You put it in there. You can also add a little bit of pasta water right at the last second just to get it just right. That's
Okay.
the key. So now what we're also going to do is we haven't done any salt yet. But you want to be careful. Don't put too much salt in because the pancetta is salty, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take that much salt. So these are just, it's almost done. And that's just about the right amount of liquid. I'm going to put just a tiny bit more. So we got it. And then the other thing you got to keep in mind too is that when you there's going to be, even if you drain the pasta good when you're holding it, there's still going to be a little
liquid
water
in
in there. So it's going to get in here, right? Again, so that's one of those things that, you see how there's pasta in there?
Yeah.
So this is how I do it. I'm just going to, it's easier for me to reach, so I'm just going to dump it in yours. And I got the towel, so we're going to, boom, I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to grab mine. We're going to put that in there. Okay, so where are we with the water? See what I'm saying? I feel like that could use just a tiny bit more. And again, it's very much a touch thing, right?
Yeah.
So we got that. The other thing it always gets finished with is black pepper. So we'll put a little bit of black pepper in there, and then it'll get garnished with it as well. Okay, now this is when you got to move fast.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in. I'm going to I'll put one on yours, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. So it's see how that's just about one egg yolk. See how the egg yolk comes out? You want to keep it right on the top.
Okay.
And then now what we're going to do is this. Stir it. And flip it. And you want to keep the pan kind of down on the heat, because what will happen is it, see how it's getting nice and creamy?
Yeah.
But you see how quickly it thickens up? So what we're going to do is we're just going to give you a tiny bit more pasta water right there. And that should be, we'll just let that reduce another second. And then what you do is you finish it off with a little bit of pecorino cheese. Boom. I'm going to finish mine. Okay, take it off the heat and back up over here, and I'll show you how we're going to do it. And then what we do is you just kind of give it a final flip, right? And then what I'll always do is I kind of pull it apart like this, because you want the pasta not to be sticky, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pull it apart, kind of separate it, and then we just kind of pull it into the pan. And you always want to kind of stack it. See how I'm doing this? So you kind of stack it up, and it gets nice and high. It looks nice like that. See how mine's? See that pile?
Yeah.
You want to get it as high as you can. It's okay if it's not that high. It looks good, dude. And then, hey Richard, can you go around there and grab us a couple forks? And then what we do is, yep, that looks good. I always garnish with a little tiny bit of black pepper right on the top.
Okay.
And then pecorino cheese to finish. Pecorino cheese is like a Parmesan, but it's made with a combination of sheep's and cow's milk.
Okay.
And it's from the Rome region of Italy. So that's it.
Very cool.
Pasta carbonara, authentic, non-American style.
Thank you.
Try it, see what you think.
Remember, make every meal an adventure.
I'm hungry, actually.
It's really good. That's good. Oh, I like that.
That's good.
That was really good.
Oh, pretty bad.
Thank you.
Yeah.